Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kill Discord because it's kind of a resource hog. Live link is below. I just want to see if it connects. I don't know if it will. I'm trying to connect it to Instagram. Give me just a moment here. I'm going to pause it. May not happen. Again, the program is called Yellow Duck. I've got all the right coordinates plugged in, but it's unable to connect. Don't know if I care all that much. No, we'll just let it go. I'll try again next time. We have to posit the existence of a new technology for liquefied ground or a hidden technology or unknown technology. But we're taking and trying to avoid that. Occam's razor. Okay, I'm trying this again. Here we go. It says unable to connect. Okay, I'm trying to connect to Instagram. Uh, Gave it one more chance here. It says connecting and then unable to connect. Not going to be an obstacle here. I guess I'll just try off and on. Not a huge deal. For those of you in DLive, if you want a link to the other platforms, here you go. Twitch, DLive, or whatever. You'll be happy to know that all of these live streams are being auto-archived at BitChute. So if you have any questions about how that's done, it's basically look up importer.bitchute.com. Their logo is basically ditch YouTube. And the way it works is you go to that site, you log in with your YouTube channel, then you plug in your BitChute channel, and it will update. It took about a week and a half for it to work. And after that week and a half, it just started auto importing. So it saves me a lot of trouble. I didn't have time to do it, and I just started thinking, am I going to have to hire a virtual assistant to do all this tedious downloading and uploading and all that? I just don't have the time. And also, I found an importer from YouTube over to Library. So what I've done is I've started a third stream that's private. It goes to a private stream that no one sees, so no one can flag it. So it doesn't matter what I say. It's still there on YouTube in the background. And it's from there that the other sites are importing. So we're basically uncensorable, which was one of my main points today. We've crossed the line to where you really can't censor this channel. There's no point to even trying. The main thing now is how do you build the network back up? A substantial network like the one we've had, where we have so many tips in a day that most of these stories wouldn't last 24 hours. I mean, that's one thing to consider. After the Nipsey Hussle did the Jesus Christ Shuffle, where he faked his death, 33 years old, on Easter and all that. Okay, after that event, which was profitable, by the way, he's made more than $1 million a month since. I mean, it's good. But right after that, we had so many people on board that when Notre Dame burned, it didn't take very long for us to get really into the details of what was actually going on, on all fronts. And I think we had such an effective group of people that didn't surprise me Sri Lanka censored their news in advance of that bombing, if you remember. They didn't want people like us questioning whether these events were real or not, which they're not. And that's an important point too. You should be able to assert with certainty that if you didn't see any evidence, then it just didn't happen. I mean, come on. People are on the fence. I had a talk with someone today who's on the fence, and I find it very instructive to discuss things with people who just don't agree with me. and I was trying to get an answer. Do you believe in the space station? Yes or no? And I couldn't get a straight answer. So I had to kind of dig and say, okay, well, do you believe in low Earth orbit? The answer was yes. Well, then do you believe in an orb? And the answer was ambiguous. And it's like, well, no, at some point you have to adhere to objective reality and logic. And so if you believe in low Earth orbit, you have to believe in an orb because the cause of low Earth orbit is the body of mass having an orb shape, being held together by gravity with its own gravitational pull, and the orbiting object is going around this thing. Like, you can't really select reality like this. It's not selective, it's objective, it's not subjective. And this is one of the reasons why we've been, sort of crossing beaks with the Mandela affected. And I'm not anymore at this point. Like, as I said, after I watched the movie, I completely understood where to categorize that. Because, there are people today who assert that they believe that they were abducted by aliens, probed, and dropped off rudely in the middle of the desert. And I'm like, wait a minute. Are we going to accept that kind of stuff as evidence? Because people will say they have evidence, it's in their memory. Well, what if somebody says to you, I believe in the Loch Ness Monster? What do you say? And I guess what I'm trying to arrive at here is if you are claiming to be part of some type of like a truth movement or a philosophical movement committed to truth, what does it mean when at the same time you promulgate things that you cannot prove to be true, using the same low standard of evidence that the MSM provides, which is basically hearsay? Like, do we accept hearsay? And then, second, are we able to call a lie, even if the lie has good intentions? So, for example, when a priest tells a lie, well, maybe it's not a lie, maybe it's a belief, but at some point, when can you, draw that? When can you actually call it for what it is? And the reason why is this: there are such things, there are such people for whom the truth is completely malleable because bending it gives them power. Pathological liars who have no problem telling lies because it does give them power. Your entire worldview, or the one that you recently left to some degree, is the result of you believing lies. Your entire life, you've been believing lies. So what I'm asking here is, do we reject lies? And can we call something a lie, even if it's couched in good intentions? So somebody says, well, I really believe in flying saucers, and one did land in my backyard. Like, it's fine if someone wants to contend that their lawn gnomes come to life. Like, yeah, when it's a full moon, my lawn gnomes actually do my yard work. Like, that's fine too. But I think we should draw a distinction between investigative journalism and fantasy, or between fiction and science fiction. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm drawing distinctions between fiction and science fiction. Just today, in fact, I was talking to someone about Pope Elon Musk, and how much of this character is pretty much right out of the sci-fi of Werner von Braun. So we're basically trying to draw the line between the world stage and the real world. It's that simple. And here's the difference. The world stage is a construct, just as any religion. Any religious paradigm is a construct. It's not the real thing. It's an interpretation. Well, the interpretation, the official one that comes out of your TV, to me, that's pretty much just your world stage. And to be on it, that is, to be on any of the big networks, to be in any movie, to be elected to any position, you have to actually participate in it as though it's all real. So, in other words, you're not going to have a politician who auto hoaxes and calls these shootings fake. They might call it a false flag, they might pander to conspiracy theorists, but they're not going to unveil it They're not going to unveil the real hoaxes perpetrated by the space stations or the space programs. They might say, well, the moon landing was hoaxed, but we had to because we had to outsmart the Russians. Like, that's a planted line which doesn't say anything. In fact, that's a big one. They've used that one for decades to guardrail this conversation. Here's an example of a guardrail for practical illustration. My book, Guardrails, is about this. It's about how do you contain the minds that roam free? How do you contain the minds that have escaped the mainstream? Well, just like if you conceptualize the mainstream as like a road, everyone's being more or less shepherded down this road. What happens if they stray? Well, you want them to hit the guardrails and bounce back. So the guardrails would be alternative stories for the people who stray and keep them from going over the rails where they're no longer marching with the agenda. And that would be us. We're not marching. You can't trigger me to go vote for any politician or war for that matter. But in this particular case, we're talking about this guardrail with the moon where people say, well, the moon landing's fake. And it was done because we had to win the space race and trick the Russians. So what that actually does is it preserves the illusion of a space war and a contention. And that contention or that illusion of a contention keeps people from realizing that they're on the same side. And it's not really USA versus Russia. It's the oligarchs who own USA and Russia versus the masses. And the space program itself is their tool to move the masses into feudalism in the future. So the illusion of a space war is just one of these Hegelian dialectics, one of these black and whites, so they can put you on sides, polarize you. And as long as you're fighting over why they faked it or why they would have faked it, you're not considering the possibility that, well, they actually cooperated in faking it. And they, cooperating, it's not like some people at the top of each of these governments, it's not like it's a mutually exclusive party. We're talking about the servants of the elite, when we're talking about who actually, who controls the media, who owns the media. It almost doesn't matter. The media itself, as the state church, is the important thing. Recognizing it and its function. And it is your church. It has given the modern atheists, the secularist atheists, a legitimate fear of God where they think the world's going to end in 10 years. There's no doomsaying preacher who can convince their flock the world's going to end in 2029. But you get these scientific doomsayers who can put doomsdays on their calendars with confidence that people will believe it. And you have the emotional extremist believers, the ones in the universities, who really do believe that in 10 years the world will end because of our overconsumption of fossil fuels. That's eschatology. You throw in meteors and asteroids, vape aids, and you pretty much have your Armageddon. So let's see. Let's get back on topic. I was just waiting. I sent out a newsletter to the patrons. So here are the topics. I wanted to talk about, are some Bigfoot witnesses lying? Even if they believe it's true. Like, when is it okay to call someone else's belief a lie? Every pathological liar out there will tell you they believe their story. And so, we've been conditioned to treat beliefs like they're sacred. You can't criticize that belief. I'm like, well, maybe you can. Maybe we have an obligation to. When a priest says, hey, God talked to me, and he said that I get to do this, and they give themselves all kinds of, license by some authority. I think it's kind of like when we're accepting a lie, we're actually accepting a logical fallacy in the form of an argument from an authority that's not really to be questioned. The authority being this person's point of view, who shouldn't be an authority, but and usually it's manipulation that gets you to go with their particular lie. But my point is, a lie is a lie. So when somebody says to me, I saw the space station cross over my house last night at 10 p.m. And just to prove you wrong, IPS, I went back out at 11:30 and I saw it again. Okay, well, I say, well, you couldn't have seen it because during those hours, according to the accepted model, that station would have been in the shadow of the Earth. So you could not have seen it. So then the person's response, well, then I just saw some lights. I don't know what they were. And I called it a lie. Because at that point, I know it can't be true, but they're asserting it. And so I'm just wondering, at some point, can we call out people who describe themselves as truthers, who nonetheless continue to promulgate uh, beliefs that can't be substantiated in any way and might actually be just stories made up for attention? Another thing, I really want to know, like for sure right now, I want to know when someone says that chemtrails are real, which planes are you saying are spraying the chemtrails? Commercial airlines, or is it just super secret jets that nobody sees? Who's doing it? And the reason I ask is that if your contention is that these chemtrails are being sprayed from commercial airlines, then do you still fly? And if you do fly, are you flying knowing that you're dropping poisons on people? I mean, I wouldn't feel good if I was on a bus and it was running over pedestrians. At some point, I'd say, hey, you got to stop. I don't want to be complicit in this. I'd take the wheel, I'd hit the brakes. I'm not going to get on once I've seen him run over a bunch of people. And those of you who believe in chemtrails, who get up on these planes and think that your plane might be one of them, I just have to ask, at what point do we push the brakes? And the reason I say so is that the climate change true believers are foregoing air travel altogether. So this Christmas, they're not flying home because they want to save the planet. And I'm saying this Christmas, maybe you shouldn't fly home if you think that there are chemtrails loaded up in that thing, because you might make the atmosphere toxic for the reindeer. Okay, so that's another topic then. We have hypocrisy and lies within the truth movement. Worth talking about. You can call Greta a climate hypocrite, but are you a chemtrail hypocrite? Or are you a fill in the blanks hypocrite? People talk all day about how evil Disney is. Well, are you still a consumer? Okay, another question for the night. Will the space station survive another month? You see, it's been 33 years since the Challenger explosion. So it's about time for another big drama involving astronauts turned into martyrs. And that anniversary is in 38 days. So basically, will they bring it down within 38 days? And more importantly, will they do it, I think, to be consistent, will it happen in the next week? We don't want it in the 34th year, NASA. Stick to your metascript. And if they're withholding because we're calling it out, that's not a good enough excuse. You can discredit us just by pointing out some of our deepfake stuff. No one will believe that. People have been asking, though, and I can answer all of your questions about it. So here's the thing, too. And also the number 505 510 4226. So this world stage concept is key because everyone who plays on the world stage plays by its rules. If you don't play by its rules, you get off the stage. They don't let you. That's why they ban you. That's why they kicked us off YouTube, because we contradict the meta script that the people on the stage live by. That's why. And so we're talking about like this hyper scripted reality and the actors on it. And that's where this deep faking technology comes into play. And a deep fake is nothing more than a crisis actor. But a crisis actor has one purpose. They play injured at a fake terror attack or a fake shooting. But there are other types of actors out there. You would call them, propagandizers or propagandists. People like, we'll just say, for example, Oprah Winfrey or Dr. Phil, people who are there to put out certain ideas that the status quo deems responsible for you to believe. We're just talking about shepherds among the sheep. A Call Day 2323 says it's going to fall soon. Got to give the newly funded Space Force something to do. Well, that's what I'm hoping. Look, this is what I want to happen in the movie. Okay, because I know this is not a real tragedy. I want Russia and China and Iran and India to gang up, take over space, shoot down the Tower of Babylon, which is the space station, and that's written in the Metascript. We went over this all year pretty much since they brought this out in May with the guy burning in front of the White House. I was like, okay, I see what they're going to do. You have this 33-year-old in a USA shirt, Babylon, burning, self-immolation on the White House lawn on the 33rd anniversary of the last time that it happened. So this is a bunch of phoenix symbolism. And of course the Challenger, the immolation, the flame, that would all happen with the ISS, which was foreshadowed by the burning of the Notre Dame Cathedral, which of course was remarked upon from the ISS when they said, you guys are burning, but it's not destroyed. There's 3 beehives on the roof. We can see them from here in space and everything's fine. Like, it was bizarre. It was all ritual. And we went into this at length earlier during the year. And if the space station goes down, we'll go through all this stuff all over again just to explain, how we saw it coming, how it was foreshadowed. I mean, for example, well, anyway, let me get back to what I was saying. China, Russia, India, whatever. Their thing is they tear down the Tower of Babylon, which scatters our tongue, the unifying tongue, which would be the internet. Now, it's just like the previous 9/11. It's a war over heaven. In the previous 9/11, it was Islamic heaven or Christian heaven. Now it's going to be who controls this modern heaven, which is outer space. Is it going to be space according to the vision of the free market, aka America? Or is it going to be space migration according to the communist ideal, which is where I believe they want to go? They've already made America a pariah with regards to their refusal to adhere to this UN, green mandate. We're the world climate change deniers, and we cause all the pollution. We cause all the space junk. And when it comes to how we use the resources of space, well, they've been saying for a while that they're going to go mine asteroids. Do you think any of these communist governments want Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk to pull down trillions and trillions of dollars worth of platinum and nickel from outer space? No way. The environmentalists don't want it because they know that we'll just spend it on bigger cars, more products. That's why when when Bezos speaks, he's actually got people protesting, saying, don't rape the universe. These are like tree huggers, but they're now asteroid huggers. Same mentality. They don't want us overtaxing the earth by bringing down resources that create too many rich people, because it's the rich people who are destroying the world, which has been the Marxist narrative from day one. And they've repackaged it, and they've managed to blame the rich for climate change already. And if you didn't know, you are rich, most likely, if you're listening to this thing live, by the Marxist standards. I mean, they want you dirt poor farming potatoes, and they're going to get you there if you go with the Mars program. So, how does this tie into the main topic? Are you mud flood affected? Norbu says, rich people controlling politics is the #1 problem today. See, I don't know. I don't know if that's the #1 problem. Because again, you're among the rich when you get down to it. That whole 99% versus 1% thing is kind of fallacious. And also, controlling politics. No, I think the real problem here is that people think of politics as separate from Hollywood and entertainment and pop culture. And your indoctrination, your pseudo history, and your fake science. So these things are all, look, I'm just saying, the entire worldview has been discredited. Hey, what's up, caller?
up, IPS? It's KMB. Long time no here.
Yeah, what's up? Hey, what'd you think of that thing last night with Andrew Wang and Joe Rogan?
Well, well, what happened exactly? Because I've been super out of it lately, man. What exactly went down?
Oh man, it just looked hilarious. I mean, I can't prove it. I mean, they did sit down together, but that doesn't mean a damn thing. I mean, that's an easy thing to fake. But anyway, it's a funny proposition. What have you come across lately?
Yeah. Well, I was just looking at that, man, and I saw, someone told me about it a while ago, and I didn't even know what was going on with it. I was just like, I looked at it, I'm like, nah, like, there's just no way. And then I looked at it again, and because I just did that based on pictures. And then I went back and just listened, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like that's it, he didn't even change his voice. It's the same thing with Aisha Curry, Miley Cyrus. They don't even change the voice because they're that confident in the disguise. You know
Well,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah, and he's got the same stature. And what I thought was funny is, I've seen Joe Rogan do some comedy, stand-up comedy, and the type of comedy he made involved hand gestures and basically adult humor. And so to see this Andrew Yang spraying whipped cream into these like the mouths of his kneeling fans, I'm like, that's just Joe Rogan stuff right there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all God, and you know what? I feel like I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel like Joe Rogan, through watching his podcast, I feel like he's alluded to this. And I can't pinpoint it, but I'm gonna have to go through it with like a fine tooth comb. They always do, they always allude to
Oh,
this
they
kind of
do.
stuff in
Uh,
their alter ego.
Check this one out. I came across this just yesterday. I mean, a couple days ago. I was looking again at the Bruce Lee Michio Kaku one, and and it came out. Michio Kaku solved a 30-year problem that Einstein couldn't solve, and I've already connected him to Einstein as an archetype because of the hair. But anyway, the solution was a 1-inch equation that answers all physical laws or explains them all. A 1-inch equation attributed to Michio Kaku. Well, then I look back. Bruce Lee is known for his 1-inch punch, which is this
Right.
quasi mystical thing. I'm like, man, that's again just showing you that yeah, there's usually a narrative, there's a story, a lot of hints.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's always there. You just gotta backtrack a little bit. Because we're definitely, 10 steps behind. You know what I mean? So it's like we have to play catch up when this stuff happens, like when we find out about it. But then once you find out about it, all the telltale signs are there, and it's just so so easy to see now. And of course, I mean, look at this though. What do we do with this information now? Because we know clearly that this is what they're doing, and what do you do now when you get pulled over by the police, and they tell you to go to jail or they tell you to pay a fine? Well, our own president in 2020 is going to be freaking Joe Rogan wearing a mask. This is all a joke. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, what? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is all a freaking joke. Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? I got to pay a fine. This is ridiculous. I don't even. You know
I
what I'm
think
saying here? Like, I don't even know where to go with this.
I
Like,
think that
what is there to do?
at one point I'm like, well, maybe when Joe was busting the moon up so much, they're like, okay, he's gonna go too far with this. Make a deal with him, and part of his deal was I want to be president, and they said sure. He probably didn't take it seriously at first, and they said, okay, Joe, you can't be president as Joe, but make up a name, and this is how you're gonna do it. And I think that might be what they gave him as an offer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then it's crazy because it's a complete opposite. The race thing. He's Asian now. I mean, you're not gonna. You can't. What I'm saying is like you cannot go to anyone on the street and say, Andrew Yang is Joe Rogan. You're gonna look like you belong in a mental institution. You know what I mean? So it's like I just again it goes back to like what do we do with this? um, and I can't. There's nothing I can do with this except like on my channel I'll talk about it, but I can't use that to wake people up with. There's just no way.
You know
You know
what?
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to introduce this in a very specific way. And one of the things I think that we discussed before was bringing up the ones that move in groups. Like someone said, "What do you think about John Benet Ramsey and Kate Perry?" And I said, until I saw the parents, it wasn't 100%. But you look at some of these characters around him, and it shows you we're looking at a very widespread strategy. Like this is standard operating procedure, and that's what they're not having an understanding of. Like we're saying, this is how it's done all over, and always has been.
Right. And so do you remember really quick? Do you remember Orlando? God, what was his name? Orlando Jones, the one that was playing the role of Beyonce's sister Solange.
Oh yes, oh yes.
This is a crazy one. Okay, this is real kooky. But Orlando Jones is a, I don't know, D-list actor now. Just a nobody really. And he has no business being in the news. Until recently, when we brought this up, we're like, hey, wait a minute, this guy is Solange, right? And he's playing the role of Solange. Like, why all of a sudden is this guy on TMZ now? Like, and he's in headline news. What, who is checking for Orlando Jones out here? You know what I'm saying? Like, and he's mainstream right now. He was just trending on TMZ.
That
Like, for
means
what?
Yeah, that means that they're being introduced onto the world stage. Like I'm starting to look at this more as Shakespeare, and it's pre-planned in that way, and I think it's a fair analogy, and then it helps to put everything in context. So, like there's a reason why last year at this time an astronaut butt dialed 9/11. So they could say they dialed 9/11 in space, that puts that out in the storyline. And then also they had a drill. Somebody drilled a hole in the ISS. So then in the same news day, you had it was only a drill on the ISS. It wasn't a micrometeor. And then two, astronaut dials 911. And along with this then is then the subtext are the cosmonauts sabotaging the ISS. So they plant their seeds is what I'm saying with people and with events all the time.
Yeah, yeah, it's in of course. And just to talk on just to touch a couple subjects real quick. Have you did you listen to anything about what we did with good old Danny Boy with Wired Up TV?
Yeah, I started to listen to that one. And yeah, go ahead and let people know what his position is on the Tupac death hoax.
Okay, so Danny thinks Wired Up TV. First of all, there's a few people that are running that channel, which is a little interesting to me. But Danny, in my opinion, is a useful idiot, if you know what I mean. They're using him to kind of just put a face on that channel, but his stance is that at the end of the day, he still thinks that Tupac was a real person. So it was really hard to really get get him to wake up. But he thinks that, Tupac is in Malaysia, Tupac is in Cuba, Tupac is here, he's in the sewers, with the Ninja Turtles and Master Splinter helping him out. You're going to look everywhere to find Tupac except for Akil the MC with Wired Up TV. So that's his main thing, right? And me and Fearless got on there, and we just, we just wanted to get on his platform. We knew that we weren't gonna wake him up overnight, but we just wanted to get on his platform to get the word out about Akil because it's getting time to where we have to knock this domino down, and I'm not going to stop at all. And it's funny, if you listen to that interview, it started off terribly. Like he was just calling us names, belittling us, laughing under his breath, that kind of thing, calling us crazy. And towards the end of it, you can tell he was actually starting to wake up to like the Charlie Tuna, Yaki Gaddafi guy. So it was very interesting. I'll say
Well,
that.
well, look, you have logic and reason on your side. It's not like we're not making claims saying, "Hey, Justin Bieber changed into a reptile." We're talking about things you can point out physical evidences of, and we also have, like someone said, "What do you mean by saying, Brandon Lee came back as Christopher Green?" Well, look, I found like 7 or 8 people who are basically right-wing agitators in alternative media who all went through the same, fake death, rebirth thing, but they all came from entertainment. And I think part of the symbolism here is the phoenix. I think that's a big part. We see so much symbolism around these actors and with the
Right.
that's a big part of it. The phoenix, it dies and it's reborn. It's part of their also the Phoenician. It's part of their religion, honestly.
Well, yeah, and oh man, and I'm gonna go back on Akil because the Phoenix thing does tie in with Akil DMC. Um, they go to the desert to die, you know, and in the desert, they're reborn or whatever their Masonic ritual is. I don't At this point I don't even care, but what it is it was interesting because so Wired Up TV and another guy on there, Todd, who I think is actually the handler. Todd was speaking with us as well. Um, he was saying, their main stance was that, Akil was, oh, I'm sorry, Tupac was 5'9" or 5'10", or, like he wasn't short, right? And we're sitting here telling them like, hey, you guys need to understand that these Hollywood magic tricks and these little camera tricks that they got, they made Tupac seem like he was tall, and not only that, first of all, he was always wearing boots, Timberlands, and platform shoes all the time, which is weird because if you're a West Coast rapper, don't you think you would be wearing some Chuck Taylors, every now and then? But he never wore Chucks, but that's a whole nother story. Um, their main stance was like, yeah, he's 5'9", 5'10", and they wouldn't hear anything otherwise. And his persona, the Tupac persona, was larger than life. So kind of like subconsciously, you're thinking that Tupac is a tall guy in stature. You know what I mean? But in all actuality, he's a little midget. And Fearless TV put out a video just the other day. And I don't know if you saw this one, but there's a singer named Michelle A, who was around Death Row at the time, and she was, I don't know, kind of like a groupie, I guess. I have no idea. But she did an interview about Tupac, and get this. She, in the video that Fearless played, she was saying that, hey, me and Pac always used to have a running joke. When I would walk into the room, I would say, hey, Pac, why don't you stand up when woman walks into the room? Because he was, he was already standing, and she just like clowned on the fact that he was short. But she said that he was freaking 5'4", and that is amazing. And that just that story alone, and the fact that he was pictured right next to Eazy-E, who is listed at 5'3", their whole height thing goes out the window now. So it's like we were just beating down all their little, their little go-tos. We're like, no, that's not true. Look at it this way. So I don't know if you guys want to listen to it, man. It's still up there, but
It reminded me of
yeah,
early conversations that I've heard with people who are, making arguments for or against the globe. And, there's usually these like questions that you expect. Like some people here are
All right,
saying,
Joe Rogan.
one guy in particular in the chat says, well, Rogan was bald and the other guy has hair. And it's like, we're not talking about a mask that, has a little elastic string that goes behind the head. We're talking about an entire head covering. And I'm looking even now online, you can find these very convincing toupees where it's basically the same technology. And what we're talking about is the mask that includes the toupee, the ears, the neck, and they
yeah,
have aspects that can cover their entire bodies.
yeah. I mean, it's insane what they're doing, what they're able to do, and also it shows you, that what they're able to hide from us, right? And because if we think about a mask, all we think about is going to the little Halloween store and getting a mask that you pull over your head that looks obviously ridiculous, and everyone knows you're wearing a mask. Or they have those little fake, President Bush masks and stuff like that, the president mask that you can wear for Halloween. Like, the levels are so much deeper than that, but it's been hidden from us. So, if these people are going to be wearing these masks, it's going to pass as real right in front of your face,
Oh,
you
sure.
know?
In fact, that lady I referenced quite a bit from CIA's disguise department, Jonah Mendez, we've been talking about her for a year, playing her videos where she fooled the president into thinking she was his assistant. It's just that
Right.
easy. Anyway, that was the front page of Drudge about a week ago.
Mm, really interesting. So you're saying that You're saying that this information came back up in the media, you're saying, or
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
like we have been talking about this stuff. I've been bringing it up specifically because I think that this is what the news about so-called deepfakes is meant to hide. So I've
ah,
been bringing
okay.
bringing her up again and again, just saying, hey, we need to be aware that they've been using this technology for decades, and it wasn't just confined to a few spies overseas. It's more
Right.
widespread. And I just thought it was interesting that she pops up on the Drudge Report of all things, months after we bring it
Okay,
up.
yeah, of course, though. And what you're seeing now, we are hitting the nail on the freaking head so hard right now that they are. It's all real time damage control, all of it. TMZ, CNN, all these people are coming out with real time damage control and responses to what we're doing. It is insane. Okay. Vlad TV, another favorite of mine, who's constantly putting out, you know, Tupac this and Tupac that, and at the end of the day, what I really realized what it came down to is the dividing line is you either think that Tupac, and this goes for all of these characters, by the way, but you either think that Tupac was a real person or you understand that that was a made up Hollywood character,
Yeah,
right?
you picked up on a solid guardrail here. And just like I said earlier with the moon landing, they want you to think that America faked it to trick Russia. They don't want you to know the whole space program is fake. Same thing here.
Right,
They want you to think that Tupac faked his death and went to Cuba. They don't want you to know that Tupac himself was a fake.
right, and then of course, what happens after that, right? I mean, he had a fake death. So who's complicit in this? You've got the entire Las Vegas Police Department. You've got LAPD. You've got so on and so forth. But we all know it's all infiltrated with for Freemasons. So go figure. Um, Man, and I was going to say one more thing, and it just escaped me right now. I'm sorry.
Well, no, hey,
Um,
I was watching. Okay, now one of the things I point out too, like I mentioned, the 1 inch punch, the 1 inch
right,
equation. I've been seeing these
right.
dualities. Well, okay, so now Justin Bieber is playing the family man, always praying and talking about God. Meanwhile,
Hmm.
The Weeknd is running amok, doing drugs and hookers in Vegas. Then you have Aisha, who's cooking, and it's hilarious to watch her cook, knowing who she is. She's there with
Yeah,
her cooking show, but then when she's playing her other character, she's running amok, basically behaving like The Weeknd. So they're constantly playing this duality where here he is portraying, and I think this is to lead the sheeple. This is an example of
mm.
bad behavior. This is an example of good behavior. And maybe later they can tell a bigger story. Like if The Weeknd were to overdose, they could say, "See, told you so."
They're gonna. So what do you think here? Because they're gonna have to off uh, um, one of these characters, and I'm thinking, you know, especially like I want to start looking at this again. You know how they always say celebrities die in threes, right? So I always want to look back at that now and look at like, okay, which celebrity actually died in threes, right? So when you hear one celebrity dies, then another and another, right? And it all happens within, what, a few days of each other or something like that. And now I'm wondering if that's because the base character died, and then, or the base actor, excuse me, the base actor died, right? And then that means his other characters that he plays have to die as well, because you can't. Clearly, you don't have a base actor to go off of anymore, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think you might be right about that. I mean,
Do you
look,
see what I'm saying?
yep. And so we've been looking at this, and there are a few people have come up. Like right now, I think we have Shia LaBeouf's 33, Cardi B 27. I think Selena Gomez is another one. And all these people, look, if they're associated with deep fakers, or chances are they're basically part of it. Like they share the same backstage, is what I'm starting to see here.
Yeah. It's very obvious. And then you know what's weird? Well, I think I told you about this before, but um, if you go to Aisha Curry, if you go to her Instagram and her live, I have a stalker Instagram account that I go off of so I could like look at all this stuff. And I noticed that all the stories, her little stories that she posts, all of them, she always has white friends, always as Aisha Curry, right? Like that's weird. Like a black chick just has a ton of white friends.
You know that
It's like,
that was
Those
said
are
about.
Miley's friends.
They said the same thing about The Weeknd. And this is something else to look into. The same criticisms against The Weeknd, not necessarily by the press, but by people talking about him and in forums. You're like, yeah, then you notice it, and you're like, wait a minute. Like some lady said, why do you have to be a skinny white woman to be in his videos? And it kind of is a dead ringer. Like it's almost like these two, like in a lot of ways, they're a perfect case study, especially in how they play these dual roles. You know, one of them's immoral, like it's path of virtue, path of vice.
Yeah,
There's a meta script here. There's a bigger story that's being told through these characters.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's so to me, it's just clear as day. But you know, again, it's just the hardest part, man. Is that's to me. Okay, so this is why I'm so keen and so big on going hard on Akil DMC because this really, when I tell people about this and when I show them Akil DMC on that bus video, they have real time reactions and I could watch them. And this one is easy actually because the only thing about this that people don't know, the reason why they don't know that Akil is Tupac is because they just simply haven't looked. You know what I mean? Like, there's absolutely a reason why, and let me bring this up too. But there's absolutely a reason why they don't want you looking at Jurassic 5 and Akil the MC, clearly, because we know what they're about. The question is why? Why did they even bring them back as Jurassic 5, right? Why did they do this? You know, I don't have that answer,
I
but
Arrogance
go ahead.
habit. It's got to be arrogance and a habit. Like people say, are they suddenly getting sloppy with crisis actors? And I'm saying, no. The main thing that's changed is real time video file sharing and a whole lot of observers. So that's what's
Yes,
changed.
yes,
That's what changed it.
yeah, yeah. And you know what's funny too? One of the one of the first videos that Jurassic 5 came out with, they're all wearing big animal costumes. Like you couldn't see their faces, nothing. They're all dressed in these ridiculous animal costumes in like one of their first videos. Like that's bizarre. So, and again, they don't want you knowing these people, right? Um, so I was talking to Fearless about this. I want to say, man, just the other day, and I told him, I said, man, like we both have iPhones, right? And we have, you know, when you're texting, it has predictive text. So
Yep.
it's gonna like, you know what I mean? It's gonna like autofill or whatever. I don't know how many times I've texted or typed the words Jurassic 5 in the past 5 months, right? What, thousands of times maybe, right? Every single time to this very minute, I will type in Jurassic and the 5 will never pop up. Ever. Ever. And it sounds crazy, but I think that's on purpose too.
It's not crazy. I've seen in many examples, I've actually seen with Google search results, and I use Google Alerts to observe this. They do bias it overtly. I mean, last year they punked everybody. They basically said, hey, we don't care what you say. If you search for flat earth videos, all you're going to see are MSM produced news hit pieces. And they actually put that filter in place. And so if you search flat earth on YouTube, you only get a few hit pieces. You won't see the most recent content, and that's just like them showing what they do behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's man. I mean, it goes so deep, man. It's like there's so many different aspects of guardrailing and gatekeeping, and you know, it's like, God damn, where does it stop? I don't know, but you know, I don't know, man. I don't know if you guys want to, everybody listening too. You know, I encourage everybody to make as many videos as they can right now while YouTube is still up and running. Um, get the word out because you know what, all the comments and all that kind of stuff, that's great. You know, that's cool. If you're gonna drop comments and facts on our videos, please do drop facts and comments, right? Some good stuff. But at the end of the day, we don't want to see the emojis. We don't want to see like the good job. We don't want to see that because if you really want to, you know, say thank you, the best way to do that is to make your own content and make your own voice heard. The more, the merrier. I'm telling you, and especially on Akil, you guys, this is going to be it.
Hey, let me read
Yeah,
this.
and
This is a good something
yeah,
comment they said here. This is by Lean Dion. He says, "Here's a duality for you. Pac rapped about crime and violence, while J5 are more conscious or hippie rap."
yeah, yeah. It's the same. Yeah, exactly. And you know what's funny about Akil? So I had another one of my buddies send me a picture. Oh no, this was Fearless. I'm sorry. So Fearless sent me this picture of Akil, and he goes, "Hey Cam, like, why does Akil's nose look crooked, right?" And I actually saw it, and I think I figured it out. And I'm not sure. I'm not 100% on this, right? I think that nose really is detachable, and I think he puts it on when he needs to be a kill. And I think I, this is just my gut instinct. I don't think he had surgery on his nose. I think he could literally take that thing off. And because if you look at it, I'll try to send you the picture. You can see almost like I can't describe it right now, but you can almost see the outline of where his natural nostrils are, and it's in the exact same spot as where Tupac's was.
Sure.
So
Did you see the
yeah,
image? Okay, this is a real classic example of just what a nose can do. There's a movie where Nicole Kidman plays
yeah,
Virginia
yeah,
Woolf, and all
yep,
she did was she put a little nose piece on, and you couldn't tell it was Nicole Kidman. And they
yep.
said it was just a prosthetic nose. That's
That's
all.
all it is. That's all it is. So you know, this is this is what they're doing, and you know, God, man, I just don't know what to make of it. Still, you guys, I'm still just trying to figure all this stuff out. So, IPS, I need to get in the house, man. So let me. I'll try to be in the chats in a little bit, but for
Cool.
sure, man. Have a good evening, man. All
Yeah,
right,
appreciate the call. Thanks again for dropping by. Thanks. See
for
ya.
sure, man. Peace.
All right, everyone, that would be Cam B. And so, what he's talking about right now is this concept of it's really not all that much more complicated than crisis actors. We all talk about crisis actors, keeping up with the crisis actors. It's not even controversial to say that these things exist anymore. Like you'd have to be in denial about that. Well, the crisis acting isn't limited to school shootings. It's not limited to fake terror attacks. We have actors in pop culture who work for the same powers that be for the same ends. For the same ends. There's an agenda behind it. So they fake a school shooting because they're trying to agitate for what? Well, gun control, control over speech. I mean, they use this to control free speech. Fake guns, fake shootings. So every one of these has an agenda behind it. Anyway, phones are open 505 510 4226. Marty Moose says, I made this account before being furry a thing. Yeah, are bears furries when it comes to bears? If you're a bear, please call in. Let me know if you guys are considered to be a subset of furries. I don't think they're the same thing. I don't think the bears actually dress up, but I don't know. I'm not sure what they do, but in their conventions behind closed doors. Were they wearing bear suits at that last Flat Earth convention? A bunch of bear suits, Flat Earth bears. Oh, by the way, he mentioned that YouTube is crap, and we need to go ahead and make sure the content gets out. And one thing you can do is go to import or importer.bitshoot.com, and BitChute will import all of your videos. So if you didn't know, my archives, and it takes, it doesn't happen right away. In this case, it took, I believe, I think it took like a week, but it finally started importing. So anything that I do live, any of these streams, it goes right on over to bitchute.com/Infinite Plane Society. The latest videos will pop up. Danger Bear says no furries in the bears. Okay, well, if two bears get together and they have kids, will the kids be furries? Are they more likely, like furry? It's like uh, assuming both of you, mom and dad are bears. It's probably not the same thing as furries. And also, yeah, thanks, Tim Truth. I just started that today as well. So I just started that. That's new as well. It's basically library.com will import from YouTube. Hey, if you're in YouTube, I'm not logged in over there. I'll have to take a break and get into my other computer. And Pippi Linkstruff says bears wear tutus. I'll be right back. I have to go to YouTube and hand out some wrenches. I don't log in anymore because, it is what it is. So let me go ahead and play. This is a cover of a Neil Diamond song, Hoax Me Gently. And who released this originally? It'll come out here. It's in the credits. Again, this is on my BitChute account. I was waiting for it to happen. It took 2 weeks. Like I said, it's worth it because I don't have time, and I doubt you have time to download videos all day and re-upload them. Chazology Beard says it sounds dubious. Oh, it does. Hoax Me Gently does sound dubious. I just had to mirror this because I knew it wouldn't last on YouTube because they're using the H word. Like, you can say the F word all day if you're an edgy comedian, and you're not edgy. You're actually serving the beast. You got to say H. You got to say hoax. Hoax and flat. And if you can't say those words, I have to ask why. If you can't say fake or flat or hoax, well, I don't know. Big Brother's got your tongue. You're following their codes, their taboos, their blasphemies. And I don't respect that stuff. Okay, this is not going to play. It's kind of weird how BitChute is. If you haven't played a video in a while, it's like it takes it a few minutes to warm up. Okay, I'll be back in just a moment. If you're over on YouTube, I'll rescue you from the bot. That thing's a tyrant. You don't jump to a conclusion that requires a leap of logic, a leap of faith, or the intervention of the supernatural. Clearly, there's no way you could have mud in vast quantities moving across vast distances. It doesn't make sense. It would have to already be there. The commenter says, I don't understand how a mud flood can kill everyone but leave the buildings intact. Because gravity. They're inferring a whole lot from photos. We're just going to sink. And the only buildings that don't sink are the ones that have the foundations built down low enough, built before the last mud flood, maybe even several recent before, inferring a whole lot from photos. Okay, I'm over there in YouTube on my phone. I don't hand out YouTube channel links because I'm not trying to grow a channel there. They will destroy it. Like the channel there, like I understand you want to subscribe, but I'm just guaranteeing for you, YouTube will have this channel deleted within a month. So it doesn't do you a lot of good. I'm handing out a wrench to a couple of people, but only because they specifically asked. Man, I can't read your comment, Pippi. She says something really funny, but it ends in mud flap. Salty says, "Why is flap such a funny word?" Yeah, it's. I don't know. Mud's an ugly word anyway, but. All right, I'll be right back. I'm trying to shy away from overarching explanations that begin with the story, and then you find tidbits that build it up. The story, I don't like to put the cart in front of the horse. And to me, the big story with hidden technology, Tartaria, all this, it needs to be approached very much by what we can verify in the way Okay, hey, look, I'm all thumbs here. I'm not going to be able to uh, pick through these chats and find people on Hand and Branches. So what I did here is I got rid of my bots. So I'm deleting Nightbot. He's being removed. I've removed the Restream bot. So speak freely. No one has a wrench. No one needs one, really. As I told you, this account will be deleted. If you haven't noticed, YouTube has consistently deleted my channels going back 2 years. The only way you can have my content on this platform is if it's content bashing me. That's it. So I'm not going to hand out wrenches, maybe $100, but I can't really see myself taking the time. I hate YouTube. Everyone should hate YouTube. They want to make it illegal to hate. I hate that place. What's so great about it? Loki says relax. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll relax. I'm sure Susan Wojcicki wants me to relax. It's crazy how people are like relax, chill. Yeah, okay. Says the bear. They're scared of trannies and Jews. It's like I'm not the one that needs to relax. I'm not threatened by minorities, especially the ones on the political left who are, gun averse. Like, what are they actually going to do to you? Oh, Loki says I wasn't talking to you. Oh, I thought you were talking to me. I'm sorry. Not that I care. Mudflutter says YouTube's causing hate. Look, I think hate is one of the biggest hoaxes out there. It really is. Like, I mean, if you're going to ban hate, then you should ban love. Because just as many people kill out of hate as do love, or greed, or stupidity, or drunk. I mean, there's so many different reasons for why people do the things they do. To isolate hate is, I think, fallacious. It's wrong, and I think it's also just convenient. Who says that this particular group of small hats, to borrow a term, who says that they get to say that the bowl cuts are haters? Hey, bowl cuts, you can't make the AOK symbol. I'm like, okay, fine. Well, then the Catholics can't cross themselves. Like, I can play this game. I'll shave my bowl cut when you take off your hat. I'll get rid of my holy book when you get rid of yours. I'll delete my website when you see that it becomes that. It's like everybody should just think and let think. Uncool Band says 2 minutes of hate is healthy. Oh, we're gonna have hate speech week. Hate speech week's gonna come up in April. I'm actually making it April 15th to April 22nd, maybe the 13th to the 20th. I wanted to basically encompass Hitler's birthday, which I think is a joke, and so are his fanboys, but it's just to make a point. So for that week, we're spearheading it here, if you didn't know. So you're going to want to stay in the know because this is going to be fun. Basically, it's this. For that entire week, we're going to commandeer the hashtag celebrate hate. And that hashtag is going to be used on every platform known to man. We'll have a legion of sock puppets and bots to make sure we can access these various platforms. And we're going to spam hate memes or memes that were banned. Like, oh, this flat earth meme was banned because it's hateful against the globe. That kind of hate. And yeah, we're going to flood the internet in a celebration. Celebrate hate. I think it's just as valid as celebrate love. And again, who are they to say who you can't hate? Can we hate the devil? How about that? I mean, I'm not religious, but can we hate the devil? Or if you're more scientific, can we hate the raping, kidnapping aliens who keep fucking up our cows? Like those guys have bad intentions. Can we hate them? Chazology Beard says, I agree with Islam about women. And what is that exactly? Because if you do, I mean, it's fine. I find it interesting, though. I noticed that the far. Okay. See, the far right, very interesting
Hello.
topic. Hey, what's up, caller?
Hey man, are you into like You're really into the mud floods, right? Like, are you know little ins and out of it?
Yeah. In fact, I'm basically working right now. I'm moderating a forum now called mudflood.org, and we're just
Yeah.
compiling stuff because I mean, to me, I'm not leading with any. I know what happened, but I do think there's enough that if a lot of us in various areas look into our local regions, we might arrive at a conclusion faster. What do you think?
No, I wanted to ask about the orphans, right? And you know, the parents. I'm trying to, I'm trying to get your opinion about it because I've been thinking about it, and I'm kind of at a wall about who they were and why couldn't they have kids and how long were they like that and like are these people controlling things or are they people being controlled and they're settling down somewhere because you got to like what we're going through they're going through too or something or like something similar
Well, hey,
like
what do you think
something a
about
higher
this?
power.
I was watching some mud flood videos having to do with Utah, and they're looking at the
Yeah.
architecture on some of these temples that it's just sublime. There's another word for some of this stuff, and I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, wait, when it comes down to it, Mormonism is just Masonic, at its core. But the founder was a Mason, and he was into some things, like they say polygamy. But I'm just wondering, you see this picture of this guy with 27 wives, and I wonder how does this fit in with this idea of a reset? Do you know what I mean?
Okay. How about how about one how about people who I'm only going on what I was trying to speak to you about, but how about people having I could say like a lineage, like pick one guy and that's gonna be the guy that's gonna have the kids,
Right.
you know, and if you really think about it, yeah, we have a lot of people, lot of cultures in history that's done that. And, reminds me of like the what do you call them the Vikings, and what do you what's the other Scandinavian stuff like that. Like they did that. Like one guy would have all the kids, and it's just like something that's been going on for a long time. So it doesn't seem strange to me that that happens. What's more strange is that um, there's and I can't think of which other ones have it, which other ones mention it, but there's other cultures that say there were people who couldn't have kids, and but I can't just think of I can't pull up the name right now. Well, I'm using my phone right now, so I can't look
But
into it.
no, this is an interesting claim though, because we're talking about like so. For example, with the Mormon paradigm, they claim
Yeah,
that if you do it right, then you get to have your celestial kingdom where you're going to have a million kids by yourself. And it's just like, this is a common thing though with religions where this idea that you become a god over your own world, you have a better life after. But yeah, I wonder too if we are talking about some hypothetical reset and the repopulation, who did it? And was it some type of eugenics program or something?
wait, have you heard about looked into the incubators?
I saw those and I was like, what the? I need to dig into it. John Levy put out a video, and someone else did, where, yeah, at the World Fair, we're looking at these baby incubators, which, I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? Now you got people who can build incubators, right? And this everything is just weird about like the technology is what I'm trying to get to. Like everything's just really weird. And then the pictures of the guys standing around, clearly they're not the construction workers, they're not the people who did the job, and it's just weird. Like their clothing, how it switches. Like I know, if you look into the old pictures, right, it looks like Spaniards coming in, right? But then everything looks Western. Like it looks really weird when you put it all together. Like what's this? Have you ever seen a TV show or heard about a TV show called Westworld?
Yeah, in
It's
fact,
old. Like they did
yes.
it. It kind of reminds me of that. Like
Yeah,
and then
yes.
I was really into Westworld, and it was about the time where I was getting really into the mud flood thing, and I kind of put them together, like, and media like and Hollywood likes to do that, like to mock what's really going on, and it kind of just reminded me of it. It made me feel like that.
Sure. Well, look, we have these movies that come out all the time. Okay, Westworld's a good one where the creators of the world where the simulations live stand around that circular table and they're on the edge looking in. And it kind of reminds me of how the elite are looking in around a circle in these other movies, The Hunger Games, and they interfere with what's happening on the ground. And this is exactly what we saw with Clash of the Titans, where the gods stand around a table where stuff to the mortals is happening there on the ground. And this is I think this is something we see in a lot of these movies, and it does kind of suggest this notion that I keep bringing up of a world stage. And the world stage is given a fake history, a backstory, and it does look like, if mud flood theory has anything to it, that they're just clearing the set once in a while.
Hmm.
I
And
mean,
then another thing I was thinking about, like during the time of you could say like I call it the orphan migration. You know, when they were just like sending orphans everywhere. Well, the pictures, I guess, what you get out the pictures is that you just see orphans everywhere, right? Well, during that time we were doing a lot of war, and and there were a lot of, I guess you could say, parents dying, and they were moving a lot of people around, and maybe when certain people got into certain places, they would just assign them kids, children, and but maybe it all ties together though. You know.
okay, well, what about this? This idea here is that there was this worldwide, essentially, burial of the previous civilization, but that it may not have been a natural event, and whoever precipitated it with whatever tech is still in control right now. And I started thinking, well, maybe they haven't unburied all of it. And so, what are your thoughts on like deep underground military bases? You think there's any point where that intersects with this mud flood theory?
Hmm. No, yeah, definitely do. And you know what? And I'm in New York, right? And if you look at where all the hills are, right? Like all the hills are like adjacent to like the waterways, the river. Like I'm by the Bronx River because I'm in the Bronx, right? And everything is facing towards water. You know, everything's facing like, and then that's where all like the star forts are. You know, by the edge of the water. But anyway, but everything is facing towards the water, right? All the rivers, all the hills are just facing down towards that, right? And it's like it's like everything. I feel like everything gets used again in the same way. Like all the military structures, all like everything is all put together. Like it's done again and again, and there's probably blueprints for it and everything. Like even where the mud is gonna flow and they probably just it's probably just a stamp and they just keep on restamping it. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was looking into this notion for a while, and one thing that I considered is that it seems like it's alluded to in a few places, but one thing would be consistent would be the same infrastructure would be seen everywhere, like the same remnants. So it's like, okay,
Mhm.
all of the cathedrals, all of the Masonic temples, all these certain like staple buildings are always going to be just basically rebuilt, or but they're going to remain where everything else doesn't. And I'm like, well, how does that work? And so I wondered, well, could it be, that Bible verse about you build your church on the rock or you build it on the shifting sands? Well, what if
Yeah.
the key structures are built on this bedrock that goes down deeper, and the rest of it that's built on the world stage gets swept away when they liquefy the ground to a certain level?
Mm. Makes sense. You know.
I mean, honestly, if that's the case, and if there's multiple, like, there's so many flood myths, and right now there's a flood myth. That's the climate change is essentially a new flood myth where they're warning us we're going to flood you if you don't cut your carbon footprints. And that's why I take this notion of a reoccurring flood thing more seriously, is that we're looking at a present day Noah's flood being essentially pitched to us and explained to us as it's happening. And I'm like, well, if they do that, they might already have everything rigged, like you're suggesting.
Yeah, and especially all the drilling. Well, there's a lot of things going on where you can angle it and you can say that's part of it or it's involved. Like the underground drilling from the East Coast to West Coast. There's like so many things going on where if people like especially truthers that they're really into you could say a bunch of different subjects. You know, if they really put it all together. You know, they put it with the mud flood and you get a lot of information out of it. Like especially these people like that believe in aliens and stuff. You know, like they're really into like what the government is doing and the drilling. I don't believe in aliens, right? But they're really into that, you know. And if they put out that information about what they found out, and then you put up the mud flood, and you could put a story together and like what's probably happening now and what's going to happen in the future. I guess you could say.
Well, so Werner von Braun, the Nazi whatever rocket scientist, said that we were going to be hit by an alien invasion and by meteors and climate change.
Exactly. I mean, like that. Yeah, exactly. Like everything you could put it all together. Like it's all like a giant stage. Like it's weird.
Well, I'm starting to think though that 9/11 was the alien invasion because if you look at like War of the Worlds as like one of the first sci-fi stories that had this theme, well, that was basically the idea that they could broadcast us on the radio and people would think is real. Well, 9/11 was an illegal alien invasion and they broadcasted it on the media and everybody treated it like real. So I kind of think that's what they're saying. And then climate change is already here and they're already preparing for asteroids. So I think that they have us under lockdown.
Yeah, and they've really been spamming freaking space news, new space news. I don't know if you've noticed. Like it's been weird, really weird. New discoveries every day. Like if you like I mean I only work with my phone, so it's like but they have like a homepage of like you could say like mainstream news, and it's just nothing but spam of new planets being found and fossils, and it's just ridiculous. Everything's dumb.
Oh
But
yeah, it is. But then again, we've been spammed with all the video games and all the movies where, like, even if you never took a class on theoretical physics, you pretty much have vicariously and in your imagination experienced deep space and
no,
gravity and orbit because you've played all these games that everyone else has. They made it impossible to avoid it.
no, definitely. Now going back to this to these. All right, are you into the I don't know what to call them. I guess people who can't have children. Like, are you into that? Like, cause I'm just for some reason something is really hitting me about that, and I haven't really got to look into it, and that's what I was asking you. But it's
Yeah, I'm still digging into this thing with this specifically the mud flood and the idea of a repopulation and how we're being farmed. But you alluded to Westworld, and I look at
hmm
looking at Westworld, Clash of the Titans, like I mentioned in the Hunger Games. This common theme makes me think that if anything, the world stage is kind of like a commune, like the movie The Village, where we're a region that's basically a century behind everybody else. And I think that's how they maintain their power. But there's no way to prove it until somebody goes to the edge. But I do think that we might also find our answers by, looking into the past and critically. Basically like the way I look at the news, it's like I know it's fake, so I'm trying to figure out, well, what's the truth, what's the agenda, and I look at history the same exact way. And that's one of the main reasons I'm looking at this mud flood thing. Is there any old ruins where you live or anything like that that's pointed you to look at
yeah,
this?
yeah. The Bronx is very old. And that's what Tesla. Well, Tesla's first lights were like upstate, and then like the Bronx is close to upstate, but we have like a lot of old structures that I know were only here because there were people using them, and that's why they're still up. They're kind of like monuments, almost like old buildings, schools that were like hospitals and a bunch of other things before they were actually what they are now. But we have these really old buildings, old like cobblestone walkways that 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 reach from here all the way, going all the way upstate, and nobody really knows who built them. I know John Levy talking about them like in one of his videos, but it was in his like early videos, so I can't really remember about it. But we have like so many things down here that is just ridiculous, like really old buildings, things that are underground that aren't supposed to be underground. You see, because the Bronx is built on hills, right? And especially when you go more uptown, going towards upstate, the Bronx, everything is built on hills. Now there's hills that are there's streets going downhill, and then buildings still being under the ground, and then streets going uphill and buildings still being under the ground. And there's certain streets that were built before other streets, and then it's like for where the buildings are at, and then what buildings are under the ground. Like a bunch of people could say, well, they put the streets because it used to be cobblestone on the ground, like as a street, like for cars and stuff, well, for horses from before. Now we have street level, right? So a lot of people argument is, well, when they put the pavement on top, the building got set up. The building got the pavement and the sidewalks made it that the buildings are more underneath the ground. But then if you can't make sense of it if you're going by all the buildings. I mean, maybe this street or this area, you could say, yeah, but that street is older than this street.
Yes,
So
you hit on a
that
strong
area,
point, and this is what I'm working on now with. So there's a forum at mudflood.org, and what I want to do is I want to cross-reference old buildings, 19th century buildings. I want to cross-reference them on and try to get a firm timeline here, because if this is real, if this happened, it would have been pretty much the same day or at the same time period, and we'd be able to find evidence of it. And so, a building that's out of place, something that's there when the population wasn't there to substantiate it, or it was built before this particular infrastructure would have supported it being built. Like these are the things I think are going to give away quite a lot.
no, I took a look at my structures, and most of them, even when you go all the way to Harlem, when you go downtown, most of the buildings say from 1922 to 1934, I believe, and all of them are built within that time. Like I don't know how long it took some of them to be built, but some of them are 7 8 years, which is just clearly impossible, regardless. But they were all built around the same time. That means there was a project being done like everywhere, like because these buildings are everywhere, especially in the city, like especially in the five boroughs. There's a lot of these buildings, and they're all just as old as each other, and it's like it'd just be impossible for everybody to be doing it at the same time. And then when you cross over to every other city, right, that was being built or being colonized around the same time, all their buildings are being done at the same time. None of it makes sense. Just, I work with buildings, and it's just none of it make like I'm not an architect. I'm an architect, but it doesn't make sense regardless. Like
Yeah,
none of it makes.
there's a warehouse that I went to here where I knew it was an old building. I was told it had this history, and it's what you would expect in this area where it's this red brick. But there was one door in particular I thought was odd where the door was actually bricked over, and if it had opened, it would actually be underground because this particular floor was beneath the street level. And across the street was a historic cemetery from the 19th century. And I thought that's kind of interesting because standing up in this warehouse, you're actually below the level of those coffins across the street, and here's where the door is, and it's really pretty much adjacent to an airport between that and a military base. And many of the buildings around that neighborhood share certain architectural features, but it pretty much looks like this area was under a hill and barely unearthed in some areas. And the cemetery, too, to me, it does look like when I look at the big picture, it seems like airports may hold a key to this thing too. That these
Hmm.
airports may have been built, or maybe this the way this thing is. Well, it's like here's the thing: if they did knock everything down, whatever they unearthed, whatever they unburied, they probably preserved the underground architecture. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like I get the idea that beneath airports, beneath military bases, it wouldn't surprise me if they were still in some way, um, I don't know, either unbearing or still having a continuity with what's below us. Like, what are your thoughts on the idea of an underground, like quite literally, like the elite could be beneath the elite,
Now,
behind?
when earlier when you said that, when we reach the edge, we were talking about another subject, and you said when we reach the edge, what I think of is everything is down. I I I guess moving forward, we'll find something there, because we don't know what's behind Antarctica. We don't know, we don't. But I really believe that what's important and the direction we should be going is downwards.
Well, it
I don't
seems.
think it's forward.
I
I
mean,
think downwards it would be the direction where we'll find everything, like all our answers. You know, like really, like
yeah, they have us
something about
looking
that.
up. They have us looking up at celestial real estate, looking after heavens above. But it could very much it could very well be below. And I started thinking about this today. I'm reading about these like earthquakes that are felt or tremors in the Mojave, and I'm like, well, it could be nothing more than the underground infrastructure. And if this was an intentional burial, and if that's what it was, then it seems like maybe these deep underground military bases might actually be tapping into some of this older infrastructure, and that's kind of what I've been
Mhm.
getting into. And strangely enough, Elon Musk invests. He's with all this outer space, but at the same time, he's heavily invested in the boring business. Boring tunnels underground. That's where his money goes, and so he's all about Swiss cheesing this place. Meanwhile, his first wife, Justine Musk, wrote a number of fictional books on the topic of underground cities full of basically these alien, or rather human, Nephilim hybrids.
It's weird. It's Scientology shit.
Yeah, yeah, it is, but just considering the source, I'm like, isn't that odd that this rocketeer is all about underground tunnels, and then his ex-wife writes these bizarre stories about basically underground bases.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and even like the Indians, like they said that the people who well, they mentioned ant people. The people who came out the ground, like people who I believe what's the story? Saved them or
Yeah,
they
the
introduced them
Hopi.
into technology. Yeah,
Yeah, that's an interesting
yeah.
one right there. And I mean, I kind of been thinking about this, and it's about this idea of the stage being reset and whatever's underground, and it's kind of funny, but the future is underground. I mean, if we follow the whole space program, what Elon Musk is leading us towards, it's we have to go to Mars because the Earth has been destroyed, but the radiation's so strong, you're going to be in underground bases until you've terraformed the planet. So when people finally do crawl out from the underground Mars domes, they're going to be in these spacesuits. So they're going to look like ant people, like
Mm.
the Hopis. It's kind of an interesting idea though that they're going to put everyone underground for a few generations. So my
You
theory
could,
on, I mean, that's what they said they're going to do. They
I mean,
have to.
I was about to bring up a theory. No, bring yours up. It's but yeah, yeah, bring yours up. I mean, let me hear yours, first. I'll let you know mine with what you just said. So on the subject we're on.
Yeah, I'm just like, look, I'm just thinking the Mars program that they've pretty much projected has everybody underground, but ultimately they're saying that they want to keep Mars green, like they don't want to turn it into Earth Part Two. And I'm like, well, look, if there's anything to this mud flood theory, maybe the next stage is they wipe everybody out with a flood, but the people who survive are the people who think they're on Mars, the people who've
I was going to say that.
migrated.
That's what I was just when what I just thought of it now over what you were telling me. So maybe it was with your help. Anyways, with your help, that I thought about it. But that's what I was just about to say. They were going to wipe everybody out, and then they were going to tell everybody that they're on Mars. They're going to come out, get down a different planet.
Yep.
Weird.
I think that's what they're going to
Yeah.
do. I think that's the plan, and that's just based on my reading of their scripting. And so the flood thing, here's another coincidence for you. Elon Musk has already described his rocket to Mars as the Ark.
Mm-mm.
And it's NOAA is the name of the organization, the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration. They're the ones who are saying that the world's going to flood, and their symbol is the dove, which was actually the biblical symbol for Noah. So I think the elite have already telegraphed what their intentions are. They're going to judge us for our carbon footprints. They're going to flood us out, and the elect, or the ones who choose heaven or choose this space, who go with the program, they will be the ones who are basically salvaged.
Wow.
I mean, that's my theory. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen that way, but I mean, I'm just going off
Yeah.
the theory.
You know what? That is a good theory, but no, and also I would still really want to get into the whole the whole childless people thing because I think that's a big thing, and I think that for some reason I just like I have a gut feeling that that's a real thing, and that has a big thing to do with everything. It just seems like if everything was happening weird, right? Say all of these weird things, like the way things happen is they're really weird, right? And in order for it to in order for for really weird stuff to be happening, there has to be a really weird reason why. You know what I'm saying? Like it is nothing normal. Nothing normal of what we think is normal is happening right now, right? So it has to be coming from something that's really not normal. You know, so that's why I put like the whole. Once I heard that theory, the whole childless, like just as soon as I heard it, it just hit me like, wow, like that. That's just about how weird something has to be in order for all of these things that you were mentioning, and then the whole mud flood. In order for all of that to be real, like that's that's as weird as it gets,
Well, it
and that's
reminds
what put me
me,
onto it.
there's Aldous Huxley who wrote Brave New World, and he described a future where people live in these domes. I guess it's on Earth, but the children are brought up in baby incubators. You brought up incubators? And
Yeah,
that they don't have parents, they have no family structure, and they're given a very particular immorality to live by. And this is so that the state totally controls them. They have no individuality, and so they're basically like treated like sheep or like cattle. But that's considered the ideal, and of course they're brainwashed and drugged, so they don't know the difference.
test
But
subjects.
yeah,
I'm just saying what you're saying with test subjects, and those are like the scientists.
exactly. In fact, it's a scientocracy, is what they describe, where it's basically, yeah, the scientists have taken control and they've realized that the human beings can't self regulate, they can't organize into nuclear families, so it's all done according to this new scientific paradigm. And the Brave New World is basically showing, what this perfect vision looks like.
Yeah, man. The
Anyway,
whole lizard.
y-
Oh yeah, yeah, but anyway, yeah. Good
oh,
talking to you.
yeah, I was gonna say
Oh
also,
no.
you got to check out mudflood.org. We're going to basically start filling it up state by state, city by city, pictures, dates, names, any info you have, but we're trying to kind of get a chronology here. So
Okay.
definitely take a look. I'll drop a link in the chat for
No,
anybody else.
and I'm in a 100-year-old building, and there's a lot of lock boxes, like the people who lived here before me, they stayed and they made like secure boxes, little floor like false floors,
Right?
and even below me, like it's a little weird, like 'cause I know what's supposed to be under me, and it's I haven't dig I haven't gone deep because it's like I'm scared of like dust and stuff. Like I'm scared of that it's silica or something down there, But I started digging a little bit, and it's supposed to be dirt, right? It's supposed to be brown soil. If if the if the if the history is right on the building, it's not supposed to be anything else below there. It's really built on dirt that's over bedrock, But for some reason, I don't think that's right because where my boiler's at, right, there's more plumbing down there, right, and it's old plumbing that we don't use anymore, right. And then I'm like, well, if this building is the oldest building that was here, then why does it have older plumbing down there? This is weird. Anyway,
Right.
I'll look into it, take some pictures, maybe send something out, because a lot of things are funny in this building. This building's they say it was from 1921, I believe, but it didn't originally have an elevator. So, and that's really weird because it's just weird. Like he bought the building. Well, the elevator was put last, from what my knowledge, and that's not how you build a building, especially if you already have an elevator. Build an elevator, and you build around the elevators, and you use the elevator to help bring up things up and
Right.
down. Like weird things about it. The elevator being built last. That's really weird. So.
Yeah, well, this is good. I mean, I'm thinking that the best way to arrive at a conclusion is to get as many observations as possible. And I'm interested in the chronology, so I'm probably going to be more looking at churches. But yeah, if you can get something with solid dates, that's what I want to find. And the website also, we have an email newsletter list so that the daily updates to the forums get sent in a newsletter. Anyway, I appreciate the call.
All right, man.
See ya.
Good night.
All right, phones are still open 505 510 4226. Are you mud flood affected? Now, I'm only saying that kind of, in a jokey way. Chaz says heading to bed. All right, see you later. Thanks for joining. So, yeah, basically, this idea, though, is that we are pretty much on top of Atlantis, more or less. The idea of sunken Atlantis, but that it was this universal order or culture or worldwide civilization that was kind of like buried, but not all the way, like the first two stories or something. Now, how the burial was affected, I don't know. Was it water? Was it a flood that brought in sediment? I'm not sure. But it didn't necessarily destroy everything, if this is what it was. And we're not just talking about basements. I mean, there's quite a lot to this. It's a little more complex. There are definitely a lot of questions that I do not have answers for. I don't rush to conclusions, but it is just kind of weird. You're looking at like what's supposed to be a basement level, and it's got a big arched doorway that even if it were open, it would be right into dirt. So this idea here is that our history was rewritten, or it was I guess completely fabricated in order to cover up the real history, which would explain the real origin of much of what we're told is stuff that was actually built by who we're told by 19th century people as we understand them, but may not have been. And so that's where this gets interesting. I'm also interested in where dinosaurs and the dinosaur hoax fits in with this thing. I mean, I think by now most people know that dinosaurs were fake, right? I'm not sure how most people are on it, but yeah, for the most part, anything that happened around that time period is very suspect anyway. So we're talking about deep fakes. Well, a lot of these buildings are deep fakes. They're giving cover stories. They're giving new facades, but okay, I got a link here that was dropped by Tim Truth. Let me go ahead and put this. This is by the Brotherhood.
Joe Rogan is playing the role of presidential candidate Andrew Yang.
Okay, so this is more of this one. Now, I don't know. I'm only looking at it. But the theory here is that Joe Rogan is wearing one of these hyper realistic silicone masks, and he's playing the role of Andrew Yang.
And it's a perfect example of why y'all shouldn't buy into that race bullshit. Y'all think certain races are superior to other races. Well, the people that buy into it are the people that actually think that makes us so much different than each other. That's how they think about it. But in reality, it's white folks and then it's the rest of us. Y'all will catch on one day.
Okay, so this one is interesting, although I'm going to need a few more pictures to go by video. I want to hear some voice comparisons. Because there is a funny thing that happens when you superimpose two faces and you fade one out. They kind of merge seamlessly, no matter who they are. Let's see here. 7-3 says, I knew he was a puppet. Check out Face from Street Beefs. He's another puppet. Yeah, I agree with that. Puppet regardless. Going through some comments to see. C-Dub says, Rogan's not the same as he was when he did Fear Factor and was a stand-up comic. Doesn't look or sound the same. That may be.
It's us.
Again, this is Joe Rogan and Andrew Yang. Similar stature. Now, if this is the case, what we're saying is that the Yang character is a pullover, basically a full head mask, full head cover, including the neck. So this would be, Joe would be basically tucked in here pretty hard. And these would more than likely be false teeth and something on his palate, which would probably aid in the voice. And of course, we're already dealing with an actor. So I'll need a few more angles. I mean, can you fit this cranium in there? Well, I guess if you align the eyes right, yeah, it may not be that difficult. The guy Yang does have a real stiff mannerism, the way he moves around. I don't even know if he can turn his head to the left or the right, without a big crease here. So, I don't know. He looks rubbery. He does. And look at the skin quality. You can see pores on Rogan, and, Yang's face is it's about as taut as, stretched rubber. Take No Nasta says ice, most likely suspect. Solar minimum, dates tie in with the history hoax. Could be. One of the topics that we have, I'm doing this mudflood.org. I'm setting up these various topics. And one of the topics is, what is your explanation? What is the basic topic as you understand it? And so what you do is you go to this link, and I'll post it again. You just click create thread, and you write, and you post pictures, you can post links, you can post videos. Again, this is just going to be concentrated on this idea of, if there's any truth to it, we're going to have to find a timeline. We're going to establish a chronology. Leroy Jenkins says dams. Yeah, dams definitely a key there. So this flood myth is one of the reasons why I think there's something to it. So let me show you who I was talking about here. So the organization NOAA, always telling us, yeah, you're all going to die. There's going to be a flood. And let me go ahead and show you their logo. I mean, is this a sick joke? Naming them, the organization here that's telling you that your world's going to flood, naming it Noah. And of course, if you look at the biblical Noah, the symbol of the dove is that it's from Genesis 8, where he spent some time out on the ocean in the ark, and he knew that it was time to go back when a dove shows up with a branch in its mouth. So that's basically saying, okay, look, the flood's over, you can go back to the earth. So what I think happens here is the elite get into their ark, which is the ark to Mars. And in the ark they have, two of everything. And because they know the world's going to be wiped out. So anything worth saving, they put in the ark. And so the ark could be a metaphor, I think, for what survives the coming reset as they change the set for the new age. And of course, in this instance, it's sin and wickedness that's being punished. So Noah gets in his ark, and he goes out there until the dove says it's okay to go back. So in this case, I think it's the same thing. I think the idea is they flood the place out, and then, of course, it's Noah says, okay, our satellites say it's safe to go back to the Earth, or something like that. But it's the same story, is my point. Metascript. The Christians believe God will flood the world. Atheists believe that the globe will flood because of man's pollution. But it's the same story. And it makes me think it might be cyclical in nature. I mean, what do you think? I mean, this idea of taking old stories and repeating them, well, that's pretty much standard. And it's this is what I mean by meta script. Only this time everything is covered in science fiction. So your Revelations is a little more science fictiony than fantasy, but it serves the same purpose. Doomsday. Okay, I'm putting a link below if you want to sign up for the newsletter. Sending out live notifications. Of course, we're trying not to be too reliant on YouTube or any of that stuff. YouTube has already, betrayed common sense, logic, morality. I mean, YouTube is an institution that favors burning books. And as I said earlier, everything is now being backed up automatically over there on BitChute, so book burning is no longer a thing. And one more thing, here is a link for a few people who want to know what I mean when I say that the mass media has become the one world religion, and I talk about Noah in this book. Here's a link, you can read it free. Hoaxed World, How Mass Media Became the One World Religion. All right, I'm going to see you all later. This is Pope Elon.
It's like if
by One-Eyed Jack and the Shells.
And if you're going to pick some place to die, then why not Mars?
Okay.
You know, if we're born on Earth, why not die on Mars? Seems like maybe it'd be quite exciting. But so I think, given the choice of dying on Earth or dying on Mars, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll die on Mars.
Father, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Give us each our daily bread, and forgive us our sins. For we ourselves forgive everyone who is indebted to us. And lead us not into temptation.
Did you drive your car to Mars? Do yourself disgrace? Hiding behind Tesla's name, afraid the sheep will wake. Will you save us from our sins? Will you help us to begin to feel the pace we can't call home? The Mars colony of our playing the game with all the souls who don't know deception is your name. Oh, belong.
And you can tell it's real because it looks so fake.
Wait for the sonic booms.